What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.
Hey there guys, Outlaw Dolphin here, and I am making just a quick top 5 things that need to change for Honor by Season 8, maybe Season 9, or maybe just straight on for the new year. Granted, this is not a quest for Honor, but that will that's going to start again on Monday. This is just, we're only 1 month away from Marching Fire, so I needed to make something, a discussion video, just something to create a bit of a talk for some of the ideas that I've been experiencing. I've been on the negative side of some of these, so this is just to create a discussion for ideas that should come in Season 8, Season 9, or just straight up next year. And we're going to begin with new map rotation. This is point number 1. So no more voting for the same map twice, and possibly freeing up maps from the 4-man team deathmatches. 1, this would increase variety, and this is also for the betterment of players that dislike certain maps. Speaking from experience, on Overwatch, you guys may know, is not my favourite. But when it pops up, it clearly is a favourite for other players. Hive Fort is much the same way, and Sentinel. I do believe that there is a meta or most effective tactic at playing these maps. 1 objective mainly, you see it on C at Hive Fort with the bridges, and Sentinel as well. It's very easy to tank and bank on those objectives. You see it for A on Overwatch, as movement is either restrained, or on some maps, in their case, there's too much movement on a map. My fix would be to introduce more maps. Like I said, free them up from 4-man team deathmatch, because some of those maps are very interesting. And if you was to put minions fighting somewhere for an objective on one of them, it is possible. I've seen some for skirmish and team deathmatch. Some of those maps just look so interesting. There's a lot of height differences. You got bridges, you got underpasses. Not to say that Dominion doesn't have these, but it needs so much more. If you think Citadel as well, where you have many ways of getting around because the B objective is so large, and then there's a larger space next to it. Or to incorporate more ideas like they did for Shard, where A and B are the objectives that change hand, but and C is the one that objectives that the minions fight over, where that's normally B on all the other maps. In short, new maps must be more creative, different, and stand out. Much like Gauntlet, because I feel like that's a very interesting map, and Sentinel as well, because that incorporates ballistas. You see how A is overly exposed but has 2 ballistas for attacking B, and C is very protected and only has 1, so it's more defensive but has 1 ballista, so it can still attack. But like I said, it's very easy to bank on C for that one, because it's hard for the ballistas to attack, whereas it's very easy for the ballista on C to attack A, if you understand my meaning. Okay, and here we are coming on to point number 2, and this might take some explanation, but you understand my meaning. With the coming introduction of the new faction, we will be receiving a new Vanguard and Heavy, actually, such as the Tiandi and the Jianjun, but all new intros for the Knights, Vikings and the Samurai, they've been hybrids and assassins, and by my reckoning only 4 out of 6 of those have really stuck into the mainstream of you see them most often. And from my experience, that is the Shaman, Shinobi for the assassins, and the Centurion and the Highlander for the hybrids. And all of these, all 4 of these heroes, they've changed how we play. Particularly if you look at a Shaman or a Shinobi's ferocity, the speed that they have, but then they have low health pool, so that's balanced. Then you have the intensity of the Centurion, and then you look at the key stance that the Highlander has, the offensive stance that he uses, which adds a difference in fighting, the way that you fight, whether you can use it offensively or defensively. It's very powerful. My only gripe about this is that there have been no new heavies or vanguards. My thoughts on this are that you can see that all vanguards and heavies have become hybrids through reworks, or simply by their creation. You look at a warden. He is a heavy assassin. He's a perfect middle ground between the Kensei and the Raider. This is probably a 60-40 split, closer to assassin, as he's fast. He wears heavy armor, but he's still quite fast in his attacks, especially since the rework for Season 7. Then you have a Kensei, who is a 50-50 split between the Vanguard and the Assassin. Now I'm saying this because he's much faster than the Warden and the Raider, much faster. Then you have the Raider, who is heavy Vanguard. You can kind of see, they all started off as Vanguard, this is true, but they've started to lean towards other things as new heroes have come out. It's made sometimes when Ubisoft or any other games company, they make something new for a game, something gets left behind. Now that was the Vanguards when they started bringing out more hybrids like the Centurion, the Highlander and the Amarusha. But the idea is that they've started to bring them closer in, so now like a Warden has the unblockable from the vertical R2 and other stuff like that, to make them more competitive, to make people want to use them more, to make people more effective while using them. All I can say is that maybe differences between each class should be greater, but then this would create unfair divides, so heavies would effectively be untouchable. More on heavies to come later. So maybe providing successful counters between heroes, for example, a Warden and a Conqueror who heavily use their shoulder bash against a Shaman, who end up dying 70% of the time. This is something that I have seen and done, because I use a Shaman now, and I've always used a Warden, so I've always been on the receiving end of using that shoulder bash too much. Okay guys, and here we are on to point number 3. Now this is a short one, but it's a very interesting one, and something that you guys might be, if you've ever played games like Call of Duty and other first person shooters where you die 2 times, 3 times, you go on a death streak with no kills, and all of a sudden you come in with adrenaline, which I think used to last about 10 seconds. So then you could live longer, you could take more damage if you were just running into the thick of it. So that is what I would like to see implemented to For Honor. Now, hear me out. Simply put, fundamental power-ups for players who die often. Now, I've mainly said this because you've seen me come in the middle of a game, like a game that's already kicked off, and I'm jumping in, I'm replacing a bot, and I struggle to get into the rhythm, and I die 2-3 times to players, heroes who have found their rhythm, who know what they're going up against. And some people struggle with this. I struggle to jump in the middle of a game. I do alright when I start a game, but I struggle when I come in a game that's already started and players have found their mojo. Similar to feats like extra defense on spawn or extra damage for the first 30 seconds on spawn, there's no drawback to this really, so long that it's regulated by timers, 30 seconds at most. Because how long does it take for any hero to get into the fray? By extra defense I mean, if you look at the Centurion's feat for creating a phalanx, every single hero gets a little bit of defense extra to what they have, almost like popping a revenge, but not going through that. And then the extra damage, just like you get some feats that up speed, damage, defense just a little bit, but just getting that once you've died 3 or 4 times in a row without really managing to get to even kill one of the enemy is something I don't experience that much, but it happens, and sometimes you do find these teams that create a death ball scenario where they're going around in a 4 and they're just smashing the team. And I see it sometimes, not often, but there are times when you just think you need a boost. You need something to get you in this. You need something that's going to be a game changer. And these death streaks can provide a game changer that can turn a game around. Too many games that I've seen that can be one-sided, and you just think, well, this is how this game's going to go, and it's not going to change. You can see it from the first minute of a game, when you see that your team struggles to take one objective, and you see that the enemy have just taken it all, and then they're just standing in your spawn, just waiting for you to come back, and you're dead again, and you can't get a one-up on them. These death streaks are an idea that could boost losing teams, losing players who just feel like, they just need a bit of a boost. Okay, and here we are coming on to point number 4. And this is something that I experienced very recently. If someone didn't see it in my last Quest for Honor, Monday, the last Friday, literally a week ago, I released a clip with the Shaman where I came across something I never expected. You remember the not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Shigokis. People may have experienced this to some extent. I've seen it a lot where I've come into games where even I've been on a team, or I'm facing a team that has 2 Wardens, 2 Centurions. You might have seen this. I think this is the most common one that pops up. Sometimes you see 2 Valkyries, sometimes you see 2 Amarushas, but very rarely 4 heavies. I come into a game, sometimes I see 3 Raiders. Now I talk about doubling, tripling, and quadrupling. I have to say quadrupling because I saw it now, so it has to be a thing. Words really don't do this problem justice. You can raise those hands if you've been in situations like this, if you get pounded by 2 or 3 of the same hero. Now I do have a fix for this. It's going to be a somewhat unpopular one, considering the game's been out a year. Since release, you've been able to use, you can use whatever you want. A team can make themselves up of however many heroes, well, say 4, but however many of each hero they want. Limiting each side to 1 hero, preventing even 2 of the same hero for the same side. This would have been impossible at launch. Now, with Amarusha, Highlander, Centurion, and the 3 new assassins that you have with them, it's difficult. It's possible, but difficult. However, after the introduction of a whole new faction with a brand new Vanguard and Heavy, because I've been talking about this a lot, the game needed those, it's very, very possible. Still difficult, but it's possible. Players who only sport 1 hero may not be a fan of this. Sure, sometimes I've seen Reputation 12 players with a Reputation 12 Warden, so clearly they only use a Warden. But this game is now providing you options and choices. Players now must simply use those options. Because running into 2, 3 of the same hero, you ever think of the situation where you run into 2 or 3 Conquerors on the same team? You know what you're in for there. It's a hard time, particularly when a Conqueror is pretty much godlike. Shigokis, you kind of saw that on that clip. 4 Shigokis didn't bat an eyelash. They did not, I say that, I kind of mean they did not pose a threat the entire time, because 1, Shigokis are slow on the battlefield, so they're not going to be running up and down the map that often. They kind of had B for a long time, but we kind of took A and C from them, and it wasn't too difficult for them. It wasn't too difficult for us to stop them from taking it back, particularly a Shaman, which is just so fast at attacking. A Shigoki is going to have problems with that. They can defend really well, but not much of an answer for a shaman's speed. You know, in many ways, there have been times when I've seen it. I had one game that was 2 raiders, 2 Shigokis, and it was very much in their favour, but not because of the Shigokis, it's how the raiders are. I think it was overly used that they could grab and pick up and throw into a wall, and then the Shigokis can just hold and charge a heavy, and it just swings and it takes out 3. I've seen a Shigoki that's taken out all 4 of its enemy in one swing and completely turned the game around. That's just something, you know, sure, this is an idea that I have taken from Rainbow Six New Vegas, but now with the introduction of so many new heroes, I doubt that you could be, if you look at the new game mode that's coming in for Breach, I very much doubt that, I mean, they may do. I mean, Ubisoft are introducing a lot of stuff that's very similar to what they do for Rainbow Six New Vegas. Rainbow Six New Vegas? Rainbow Six Siege. Can tell I don't play that game. And I have a hankering for Fallout New Vegas. Anyway. You can just see that like they're doing like these whole emote screens at the end of the game where, you know, your character looks cool when you win or kind of sad when you lose. You know, they're bringing that in, and we kind of see like a whole lineup of raiders just doing the same emote. And I'm going to look at that and just think, what are you doing? Like, really? Because I've seen it for teams, and then sometimes I've just seen it per chance where like a whole team of people, they'll pick one thing because they know it's going to work, particularly raiders. I don't know why it works so well. But yeah, Lord knows what that team was thinking of when they picked 4 Shigokis. And you can see what your team is picking, so then I tend to go with something different. Like, one game I was in, I saw, okay, 1 Warden, 2 Wardens, 3, okay. Clearly we're not thinking here. So then I picked something like an Assassin that can get around the map a lot quicker than they can. Or, because I don't play heavies, but then if I did, I would probably pick the heavy. Maybe a Conqueror would be the only heavy that I play, but then again I don't play any heavies, they just move too slow. But then Conqueror is actually quite fast. Moving on, point number 5. Now these are character reworks. 3 I want to see, 1 I do not. We're going to start off with the almighty Conqueror. Now the idea of these character reworks is to implement a risk and reward system, not for just the person using that hero, but then for the person fighting them, because all too often I see people fight Conquerors and not really bother. There's 2 problems. 1, I know I've not killed a Conqueror in open field, not being a Valkyrie, not using an unblockable or a feat such as the catapult, because, you know, you've seen it on screen. I used the catapult to kill 1 Conqueror because I don't want to go near a Conqueror, because I've fought Conquerors 1-on-1. Not fun. And then even when you are fighting a Conqueror, the only way to fight is on the counter. I've died a bunch to a Conqueror for sure, but that's not what irks me. It's when you're chipping down a Conqueror's health and it takes so long that his team come to his rescue and they swarm you, turning a 1v1 into a 3v1 within an instant, and all of a sudden you just feel like, well, I really shouldn't have bothered trying to attack the Conqueror because look at me now. Fix number 1. Now this is just 1. I have 2 suggestions. To improve the damage slightly for a Conqueror at the cost of his speed to attack. Yes, a flail is a momentum game, but a Conqueror kind of swings beyond recklessness at the speed, because one clip that I recorded, I didn't even bother trying to block in the end because it was just too fast. My reactions, I think, what was I? I think I was playing either Orochi or Gladiator, and he was just hitting me for days. And I was just like, well, I'm not even gonna bother because he's just too quick. And a flail is not that quick. 1, I've held flails. 2, I've seen flails used by trained people. They will never swing them that fast. Sure, this is a battlefield instance, and sure, you would swing it faster on a battlefield, but still, this is reckless. It should almost be doing damage to him as well. And the idea of this infinite chain, his stamina cost should cost greater than what it does. Or 2, you can keep his defense and stamina as you please, but for his high defense, its health is too high. Like I said, the chipping down takes a very long time. So if you bring that down only 20 or 50 points, then that's enough. That would make a Conqueror slightly more mortal. And then my next change, this next rework is for the Kensei, which, sure, a hero which felt very clumsy to me as I tried to use it, but is so well used by others and has a few points that made him untouchable sometimes. Don't get me wrong, those who are well versed to their specific hero always come off as untouchable at some point. Like if you can look at a Shinobi. He's annoying as anything, but if you hit him, he will go down in 3 or 4 hits, and sometimes it just looks like he has a rhythm and it's just never going to end because you can't touch him. He moves in ways that are just kind of alien to how your hero attacks, like he's almost dodging away and attacking at the same time. It's very weird. But to know if you spoil that rhythm, then a Shinobi will go down quite quickly. But if we go back to the Kensei, however, I don't mind the fainting of the unblockable. That's all fair game. Though he's not an Orochi, but the Kensei can keep up with dodges and side attacks which baffle me. You've seen it. He dodges to the right and the attack comes from the left, and I'm just like... He is skilled with the Nodachi, but his speed is almost superhuman in some respects. And in the hands of the skilled, smart, or both, he becomes untouchable and unplayable, with no real risk or fear of being caught out, particularly by, me. Fix number 1 would be to lower his side attack heavies speed by about 100 or 150 milliseconds. Because seriously, a Valkyrie is not that fast, and her spear is much, much lighter. Seeing how fast a Kensei is on side heavies makes my Valkyrie envious. I'm talking green with envy. Because she's holding a spear, yet she wields it like a hammer. And I'm just like, come on, why? I've seen the idea in my head, and how is it so hard that a Valkyrie has to swing her spear like a sword on a heavy? Sure, maybe, because they've already made the side light attacks on a Valkyrie what they are, very fast. Just give her unblockables swinging from horizontal but pointed, so that she's still thrusting, but it's a thrusting unblockable from the side. Not too difficult. Or 2, once again, you increase the attack on the Kensei slightly at the cost of defense, or you take 50 points off his health bar. So lowering the health bar in order to, if a player fighting a Kensei finally gets that chance to counter a Kensei, which is very rare because he's very fast. Like, he can almost get 2 attacks in before you've figured out which direction he's attacking from. This is just me. I know there are other people out there who struggle against the Kensei. There are some out there who don't. And I respect you guys, because Lord knows I want to be you. I say this as Akensei's side attacks move him out of range of most attacks. He's almost moving... It's not essentially moving diagonally, but if you watch Akensei's side heavies or side attacks, he is moving away from you as he attacks you. Now, I know an Adachi is big and it's long, but the idea of how he has to swing it to hit you, that's not real. He can't do that. That's not feasible. Yeah, this is just a game, and sure, you could say a lot of these characters are superhuman in ways, but that's stretching it for me, especially when I know how bad a Valkyrie is on side heavies, because I know everybody knows she can do better, and they've given it to the Kensei for that one. Third hero, and second to last, is the Gladiator, which is a fun hero that I use, and in Season 6 was every way superior to the Valkyrie in my opinion, as I made the discussion video on her before she had her rework. But with with the Valkyrie's rework, the downfalls for the Gladiator begin to show, and I'm talking shovel and spade. All or most of a Gladiator's attacks yield low damage and provide very easy parries from opponents. The downside to this is the almost permanent state of exhaustion a Gladiator finds himself in. Also, in the thick of it, a Gladiator's low reflex guard is the worst for all assassins and demands rebuilding, as a Gladiator holds a shield, but you wouldn't think it. You would not think that it uses the shield. A fix for this demands a total rework. Maybe not from the ground up, but I'll explain. Option number 1, being that a Gladiator, in my mind, is not a true assassin from history. He's not an assassin type killer. Just watch the film Russell Crowe's Gladiator. You will see how gladiators need to fight. It is not like an assassin. They're not sneaky, which is an assassin. They're quite loud. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing low dodging speed. I'm willing to get that, because their dodges are quite quick. The speed on them is quite fast. And in its place, to be a better reflex guard, akin to even a Orochi or a Berserker. I'm talking perhaps superior guard on dodge so that they can implement more counter-attack. Or 2, a rebuild of a moveset that allows more versatile moves, as that is the ground on which a Gladiator prides itself. They are versatile fighters. A Gladiator is someone who will do whatever they need to do to keep on breathing. They are savage, and there's nothing savage about the Gladiator other than the skewering attacks, which are easily parryable, and the executions, which they are really fun. They are fun, they are vicious, and they are savage. They're exactly what a Gladiator should be. But the moveset is not. And quite frankly, the shield bash from a Gladiator is pitiful. It's sad. It's so short range, it's unusable. A Gladiator's health is, the health bar is all well and good at the moment, but he can't land a hit and is incapable of defending or surviving against faster opponents, nor excel when being outnumbered, which is something Shaman and Orochi, I believe a Shinobi can do it. Peacekeepers as well. They all tend to excel when they're outnumbered. Their reflex guard is so high, particularly a Shaman, which is almost godlike in my opinion, and I hope it never ever goes away. But a Gladiator is not an assassin from history, but if it's going to be an assassin in this game, then it needs to be shown more respect in its defensive capabilities, because Gladiators are tough cookies. Just They just are. They are fighters, they are survivors, they should be able to defend themselves much better in game than they are shown to. Lastly, this isn't necessarily a rework that I don't want to see happen, but I've seen a lot of people, and I want to put my penny's worth on a Lawbringer rework chatter that I've seen going around. I've seen it, I've heard it, I've listened. But given that he does not have hyper armor now, this is one point that I see bring up a lot. He's not a heavy. Sure, he's like 6'5". He's like the tallest thing in the game except for a Shigoki. He's not a heavy. He's not a heavy. Heavies have hyper armor. The Warlord, the Shigoki, I think even the Conqueror has hyper armor to some extent. Lawbringer's not a heavy, and thus does not require hyper armor. Note, this is a hero that I only face. Hand on my heart, I face this hero a lot. I've never used it, except only in the story. So I really can't say what it's like to not have hyper armor and be 6'5". For a hero who has the greatest parry game in the land, it would be unbalanced for him to also have hyper armor. So he can have one, but you leave the other behind. So if you give him hyper armor, then you take away his parry. You take away those quick parry counters that he has, because that would become unbalanced. That coupled together with high health, damage, and concussive abilities, hyper armor, that would be a no from me. If I was a developer and I was working on the Lawbringer and I heard chatter of hyper armor but leave everything that he has in his locker, no sir. This is not a character that demands a rework. At least not in my opinion. And guys, that is all from me. Please keep in mind that everything that I've said in this video is my opinion. I put it out there for you guys to discuss. Maybe some of it's warranted, maybe some of it isn't, and maybe I do sound a bit biased on some points. But right now, I'm going to leave you with a clip of a lot of the stuff that I've caught while capturing this footage, and I'll leave you, and I will see you for the next one. Have a good day, guys, and thank you.
Thank you.
Zone A.